Commander Ian Cross was more than a diplomat. He was a legend, a man of unshakable resolve. His presence demanded respect across species. With his tailored suit of woven alloy, a blend of human ingenuity and alien craftsmanship, he stood as a symbol of humanity's earnest pursuit of peace. His voice carried the weight of countless lives. His every word, chosen with precision, meant to disarm hostility and bridge divides. Now, he was humanity's emissary, tasked with negotiating an unprecedented peace treaty with the Galactic Empire. The stakes could not have been higher. Humanity had stretched its resources thin after decades of conflict, and the Alliance's council gambled everything on this diplomatic mission. The negotiations were to take place on Zenith Spire, a towering citadel stationed in neutral space, its crystalline structure reflecting the cold, unyielding light of distant stars. Cross arrived aboard Hawkeye, flanked by a sparse security detail, per the Empire's request for good faith. His steely gaze betrayed no sign of unease as he stepped into the Empire's Grand Hall, where towering columns of iridescent stone reached for the vaulted ceiling, and the air buzzed faintly with alien technology. The Empire's delegation was led by General Vorik, a hulking creature with scaled, cobalt skin and a disdainful sneer that seemed permanently etched into his face. Beside him stood Diplomat Sezek, his serpentine figure draped in flowing silks, and Commander Lyron, whose mechanical augmentations gleamed menacingly under the hall's luminescent glow. The alien king's absence loomed large, yet the delegation assured Cross of the monarch's approval. "Commander Cross," Vorik rumbled, his voice like grinding stone, "the Empire recognizes your efforts. We honor this opportunity to discuss peace." Cross's sharp mind registered the lie beneath the cordial tone, but he pressed forward. Humanity could not afford failure. For hours, he debated with the delegation, navigating a labyrinth of evasions and half-promises. His arguments were impassioned yet controlled, appealing to mutual survival and prosperity. When the talks adjourned for a brief recess, Cross retreated to his assigned quarters, a sterile chamber adorned with Empire regalia. There, he activated his encrypted communicator, reporting back to Earth. "They're evasive, but there's room to maneuver," Cross said, his voice tinged with weariness. "I'll push harder tomorrow." "Be careful, Ian," replied a familiar voice. Captain Jackson Reeve, a longtime friend. "The Empire doesn't deal in good faith. Remember who you're dealing with." "I always do," Cross replied, his lips curling into a faint smile. The next day, the peace talks resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. The Empire's delegation was sharper, more hostile. Accusations were thinly veiled, and Vorik's words cut with venom. Cross held his ground, matching their vehemence with unyielding resolve. As the discussion stretched into the night, Sezek proposed a private meeting, away from the formalities. "Perhaps," he hissed, "a quieter setting will ease our negotiations." Cross agreed, sensing an opportunity to bypass the delegation's collective resistance. They convened in a secluded chamber, its walls pulsating faintly with alien energy. But instead of diplomatic overtures, Cross found himself surrounded. The room darkened as Vorik and Lyron emerged from the shadows, their expressions devoid of pretense. Cross's instincts screamed danger, but it was too late. Sezek's silk robes concealed a blade of jagged plasma, which he plunged into Cross's side with merciless precision. "You humans cling to hope like it will shield you," Sezek sneered. Cross stumbled back, his hand clutching the wound as blood seeped through his suit. He fought to remain standing, his piercing gaze locking onto his attackers. "You think this will break us?" Cross rasped, his voice defiant even as his strength waned. "Humanity will endure." His final words were a vow, not a plea. The diplomat collapsed, lifeless, his mission betrayed. News of Cross's death spread across the Alliance like wildfire. Shock turned to grief, and grief to fury. In a solemn address, Captain Jackson Reeve, Cross's closest ally, stood before the Alliance Council. "We trusted them," Jackson declared, his voice trembling with controlled rage. "Ian believed in peace, and they butchered him for it. This isn't just murder, it's war. The Alliance Council voted unanimously to retaliate. An elite squad was commissioned, tasked with hunting down Cross's killers and delivering justice. Their mission would end with the alien king himself, the architect of betrayal. As Jackson prepared his team for war, he stared at a holoframe of Cross, his expression hardening. "We'll make them pay," he vowed. The gears of vengeance had been set in motion. Captain Jackson Reeves stood at the helm of the Brave, a stealth assault ship cloaked in matte black alloy, awaiting the arrival of the men he had handpicked for this mission of retribution. The distant hum of the ship's engines was a quiet reminder of their imminent departure into enemy space, a dark path that none of them were expected to return from. Jackson had known Ian Cross for years. They had served together in battles, endured hardships, and shared the rare camaraderie that forged men into brothers. Now, with Cross's blood on the hands of the Galactic Empire, Jackson felt an iron resolve hardened within him, one that he shared with each of the operatives chosen to join him. One by one, they arrived, each man embodying a different facet of warfare, honed by years of conflict. First was Sergeant Kai Brennan, whose sharp, tactical mind was only matched by his temper. Brennan, a demolition expert, had spent countless missions dismantling enemy fortresses with precision blasts. Stocky and heavily scarred, his short, bristled hair and stormy gaze gave the impression of barely restrained fury. He clasped Jackson's hand in silence, his eyes reflecting a thirst for revenge that needed no words. Next was Corporal Mason Grant, a sniper with ice in his veins. Tall and lean, he moved with a quiet confidence, each step measured and controlled. Grant was a man who believed in the philosophy of single shots and clean kills, a trait that had earned him a reputation as the best marksman in the Alliance. His stoic demeanor and piercing blue eyes masked a ruthlessness that would prove invaluable in the mission ahead. Grant nodded at Jackson, a silent pledge to carry out the justice Cross deserved. The last aboard was Lieutenant Leo Rourke, a close combat specialist and the squad's fiercest brawler. Rourke was thickly built, with corded muscles and hands that looked more like hammers than anything else. His reputation as a brutal fighter preceded him, his sheer physicality an asset in tight quarters. With a slight tilt of his head, he acknowledged the captain, his expression unreadable behind the dark eyes that had witnessed too much violence to care about anything but victory. When all were assembled, Jackson addressed them, his voice resonating in the dimly lit confines of the ship's central chamber. "You've all heard what happened to Commander Cross," he began, his tone a nice edge between control and rage. "He believed in peace, fought for it, and they lured him into a trap, slaughtered him. It was a message to humanity, to all of us." A grim silence settled over the team, broken only by Brennan's low growl. "Bastards wanted a war, then. We'll bring it to their doorstep. That's the mission," Jackson replied, his gaze sweeping across his men. "We're not here to start a war on their terms. We're here to eliminate the council members responsible for Ian's death, one by one. And when they're gone, we go after the alien king himself." The plan was audacious, borderline suicidal. Yet each man nodded, eyes hard and unflinching. Jackson knew this mission required more than skill. It demanded an unbreakable will, a shared purpose that went beyond orders. He could see that resolve in each of them, a raw determination forged from shared pain and loyalty to their fallen comrade. They moved to the armory, where the final preparations began. Each man's gear was custom-tailored to his expertise. Jackson strapped on an adaptive exosuit, designed for rapid environmental shifts and enhanced mobility. It was a suit engineered for leaders, protective yet agile, allowing him to stay at the forefront of battle and direct his team's moves with precision. Brennan's kit included a series of high-yield explosives compact enough to be carried at his waist. These devices were built to be both deadly and silent, suited for infiltration and sabotage. His fingers brushed each one with reverence, a silent promise to deliver vengeance with every explosion. Grant inspected his custom sniper rifle, the Scepter, The weapon was equipped with a multi-spectrum scope, capable of sighting targets in any condition or atmosphere. It was his lifeline, and he handled it like an extension of himself, calibrating it with the careful precision of a man who knew that one perfect shot could change everything. Rourke suited up in heavy combat armor, reinforced with ablative plating, designed for close-quarters combat. The suit granted him extra protection and power, perfect for the role he would play as the squad's frontline fighter. The massive, serrated combat knife he sheathed at his side was more than a weapon. It was a brutal promise. As the men readied themselves, Jackson's communicator beeped. The final details of their infiltration route had come through. They would be traveling deep into Empire territory, and their first target, General Vorik, was stationed on a remote colony world. "Remember," Jackson said, his voice cutting through the tension, "this mission isn't just about killing. It's about sending a message. We want them to feel it. Know that every move they made against us is coming back tenfold. We're not just striking for humanity. We're striking for Ian." Brennan clenched his fist. "For Ian," he echoed, his voice a low rumble. The others nodded, steeling themselves for what lay ahead. They had taken missions before, but this was different. This was personal, and that meant there was no room for failure. They each understood that the road they walked now was one of no return. As the Brave powered up, its thrusters humming with latent energy, Jackson took one last look at his team. He saw not just soldiers, but brothers in arms bound by duty, loyalty, and the unbreakable desire to avenge the fallen. The silence that followed was thick with purpose, each man ready to do whatever it took. With a final command, Jackson ordered the ship's departure. They launched into the vast darkness, a vengeful storm hurtling toward the heart of the Empire. The Brave slipped through Empire space, a shadow in the cosmos. For days, the squad followed silent reconnaissance reports, adjusting their plans to bypass heavy patrols and evading detection with expert precision. Their first target lay on Obsidian, a desolate colony world where General Vorik was stationed. Jackson's gaze remained steely as they entered the planet's atmosphere, his voice calm and steady as he addressed his team. "We're splitting into 2 teams for this one. Brennan, you're with me. Rourke, Grant. Cover us from the ridge, and be ready to intercept any hostiles." Each man understood his role. They moved with silent efficiency, descending onto Obsidian under the cover of night. The cold, rocky terrain stretched endlessly, but ahead loomed the bunker that served as Vorik's stronghold. Its defenses were formidable, laser turrets and patrol drones sweeping the perimeter, guards posted at every entry point. Yet it was nothing they hadn't faced before. Brennan crouched beside Jackson, eyes glinting with anticipation. "Let's make some noise." He unpacked a compact explosive charge, setting it on a control panel near the bunker's main gate. Jackson gave the nod, and Brennan triggered the device. The explosion reverberated through the night, knocking out the bunker's exterior defenses. As alarms blared, Jackson and Brennan advanced, moving like specters through the smoke. Within moments, Rourke and Grant provided cover from the ridge. Grant's rifle flashed once, twice, as he picked off guards who scrambled to respond to the breach. Each shot was flawless, his skill cutting down enemies with cold precision. Inside the bunker, Vorik appeared, his massive form towering above the scrambling guards. "Humans," he spat as he recognized them, contempt twisting his features. "You think you can touch us?" Brennan's response was a grenade that detonated near Vorik, sending shards of metal slicing through the air. The general reeled, but his armor absorbed most of the blast. Jackson charged forward, a burst of energy bolts tearing through the guards blocking his path. He reached Vorik and, with a swift series of moves, landed a brutal punch to the alien's plated jaw. Vorik staggered, and for a moment, Jackson saw the flash of fear in his eyes. "This is for Commander Cross," Jackson hissed, plunging his blade into the gap in Vorik's armor. The general's final snarl faded as he collapsed, lifeless. The squad regrouped quickly, withdrawing from the bunker just as Empire reinforcements arrived. They vanished into the night, one target down, leaving behind only whispers of terror. Their next objective led them to the lush, fog-drenched world of Velter 9, home to Diplomat Sezek. Known for his cunning, Sezek had retreated to a heavily guarded villa hidden within a dense jungle, surrounded by layers of holographic camouflages. The team set up a perimeter, with Grant taking position high in the canopy, while Jackson and Rourke infiltrated on foot. They moved slowly, navigating traps and sensor fields with care, every step calculated. Hours passed as they advanced inch by inch, each movement deliberate. Finally, they spotted Sezek lounging on an opulent terrace, his serpentine body draped in shimmering silks, his face calm and detached. Sezek believed himself untouchable, unaware of the danger creeping closer. With a quiet signal, Grant took aim. His finger tightened on the trigger, and a silent shot pierced the air. The bullet struck Sezek in the heart, dropping him before he could even comprehend the threat. Guards rushed in, confused and panicked, but the squad melted back into the jungle undetected. Another council member had fallen, and the Empire's sense of invulnerability cracked further. The last council target, Commander Lyron, awaited them on the industrial planet Toros 4. Known for his tactical mind and ruthless efficiency, Lyron had fortified his position in a sprawling factory complex, guarded by automated turrets and squads of Empire soldiers. The squad arrived in disguise, posing as smugglers delivering illicit goods to the facility. Under the pretense, they gained entry to the complex and split up, navigating the labyrinthine corridors to reach Lyron. Inside the factory's control room, Lyron monitored them through the security feed, a grim smirk spreading across his face. "You humans are persistent," he murmured, activating a lockdown. But predictable, doors slammed shut around Jackson and Rourke, trapping them. Automated defenses sprang to life, and guards swarmed from every corner, blasters raised. Jackson assessed the situation in an instant, his mind racing. "Grant Brennan, can you breach the system?" "Working on it." Brennan's voice crackled through the calm, tense but focused. With deft hands, he hacked into the system, disabling one lock after another. Grant provided sniper support from an overhead scaffold, thinning out the guards as Jackson and Rourke fought their way through waves of enemies. Finally, they reached Lyron, cornering him in the control room. He fought ferociously, his mechanical augmentations giving him an edge in strength and speed, but Rourke was relentless. The two clashed in a brutal melee, Lyron's enhancements countered by Rourke's raw force and skill. In a final strike, Rourke overpowered Lyron, landing a crushing blow that ended his life. With the last council member defeated, the squad stood amid the wreckage of the control room, catching their breath. Each kill had chipped away at the Empire's grip, leaving the once mighty council shattered. But they all knew their mission was not yet complete. "3 down," Jackson said, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "Only one left." They shared a grim look, understanding the weight of what lay ahead. Their next target was the most dangerous of all, the alien king himself, the architect of the betrayal. The journey had left scars, both physical and emotional, yet none faltered. Their resolve was steeled, and with renewed determination, they prepared for the final confrontation. In the silence that followed, they packed their gear and made their way back to the Brave. Each man was ready to finish what they had started, vengeance lighting their path to the cold void as they set their sights on the Empire's core. The Brave moved steadily through the depths of Empire space, its crew cloaked in silence as they neared the Empire's core, the Imperial Citadel. Floating above a planet of swirling storms, the Citadel was a massive fortress of obsidian metal, guarded by a fleet of warships and impenetrable energy fields. This was where the alien king, Emperor Zather, awaited them, his presence casting a shadow across the galaxy. Jackson gathered his team in the briefing room one last time. They had each survived the trials of the mission, but the gravity of what lay ahead weighed on them all. Emperor Zather was the master behind the betrayal, the one who had orchestrated Cross's murder. This final confrontation was what they had trained and fought for, but each man knew this could be their last battle. "We're going to breach the Citadel's defenses using a covert entry through the maintenance docks," Jackson began, his voice steady. "The Empire thinks itself untouchable here, but we've come too far to turn back. Emperor Zathar will answer for what he's done. The plan was risky, bordering on impossible, but the squad nodded with grim resolve. Brennan secured his explosives. Grant double-checked his rifle, and Rourke tightened the armor plates on his suit, each action an affirmation of their commitment. The Brave powered down as they slipped past the outer perimeter, the ship's stealth systems tested to their limits. They docked undetected, slipping through maintenance shafts and service corridors, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the Citadel. Imperial guards patrolled the halls, but the squad moved with deadly precision, neutralizing threats swiftly and quietly. Every corner turn brought them closer to the throne room, the heart of the Empire's power. Finally, they arrived at the grand entrance to Zathar's throne room. Massive doors of alien alloy loomed before them, guarded by an elite squad of armored soldiers wielding energy lances. Jackson signaled to Brennan, who placed charges on the door's locking mechanisms. With a silent countdown, they detonated the explosives, sending a shockwave through the Citadel. The squad burst into the throne room, weapons raised, only to be met by a chilling sight. Emperor Zathar stood at the far end, flanked by shimmering force fields and towering alien guards. Tall and skeletal, his scaled form seemed almost ethereal under the room's dim, eerie lights, his eyes glowing with a cold intelligence. "So, the humans come for justice," Zathar said, his voice a low, mocking hiss. "Commander Cross's idealism has led you to your doom." He extended a clawed hand, a surge of power pulsing through the room as he activated the force field surrounding him. Jackson stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Cross believed in peace. He trusted you, and you murdered him to send a message. But you underestimated us." Zathar sneered. "Peace is for the weak. The Empire endures because we do what is necessary to survive. Humanity's defiance is nothing but a nuisance." Without another word, the squad launched into action. Grant took aim, his sniper rifle crackling as he fired at Zathar's guards, each shot finding its mark. Rourke and Brennan charged forward, drawing fire from the remaining guards as they weaved between columns of alien architecture. Jackson advanced carefully, his movements calculated as he fired at Zathar's force fields, searching for any weakness. But Zathar was no ordinary enemy. He raised his arms, summoning a wave of energy that rippled through the room, knocking Rourke and Brennan back. The force of it sent Jackson reeling, but he regained his footing quickly, barking orders through gritted teeth. "Brennan, set the charges. Grant, cover him." Brennan placed explosives along the room's pillars, destabilizing the structure and weakening the force fields protecting Zathar. With each detonation, the Emperor's defenses flickered, cracks appearing in the shimmering barriers that separated him from his attackers. As the last pillar exploded, Zathar's force fields fell, leaving him exposed. Jackson seized the moment, rushing forward as Rourke and Brennan fought off the remaining guards. Zathar's eyes narrowed as he faced the human captain, a look of disdain twisting his alien features. "You think you can end me, human?" Zathar hissed, his voice reverberating with dark power. He lashed out with a blade of energy, narrowly missing Jackson, who sidestepped and countered with a volley of shots from his blaster. "Not think," Jackson replied, his voice cold. "I know." In a blur of motion, Rourke charged in from the side, his massive form slamming into Zathar with unstoppable force. The Emperor staggered, his composure faltering as he struggled to defend himself. Together, Jackson and Rourke pressed the attack, each strike tearing down Zathar's resistance, each blow an echo of their fallen comrade's sacrifice. Finally, with a swift, brutal strike, Jackson plunged his blade into Zathar's chest. The Emperor gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief as his strength faded. "You humans are nothing," he rasped, his voice a whisper of hatred. Jackson leaned in, his voice hawk-eye. "We are humanity, and we never forget our own." With that, he withdrew the blade, and Zather's body crumpled lifeless onto the cold floor of the throne room. Silence fell over the squad as they took in the sight. The Galactic Empire had lost its king, and the echoes of this victory would resonate across the stars. They regrouped, the weight of their victory mixed with the solemn remembrance of those they had lost. Their mission was over, yet each man knew that their lives had been irrevocably changed. As they returned to the Brave for the journey home, a quiet satisfaction settled over them, a sense of justice fulfilled, and a knowledge that they had honored Commander Cross's legacy. As they slipped away from the Citadel and into the void, Jackson allowed himself one final glance at the fallen empire behind them. Their message had been delivered, a warning to any who would dare underestimate humanity.